Okay, so we are live. Hi everyone, my name is Anna and I am the nutrition consultant for Choices Markets at our Kelowna location. My team and I offer complimentary nutrition education in our stores across BC, which you can book through our website. I would also like to mention for those that have attended this seminar that you are eligible for a nutrition buck, which is a $10 off coupon when you spend $50 or more at our store. A survey link will be sent out to you at the end of the seminar, where you will be able to select your preferred store location, and you can pick up your nutrition buck at that store, and you will have 30 days to do this. And I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Miranda. She began her career in natural health at 13 years old, and when she took a summer job at her local health food store. By age 14, she had decided on a career in naturopathic medicine. Her initial exploration into herbs, nutrition, and the human body were self-guided and led her towards a bachelor's in human nutrition at the University of British Columbia. She later graduated from the Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine in British Columbia and currently practices in Vancouver, BC. Before we begin, I would like to ask you if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, please enter them in the chat box and we will get to them at the end of our presentation. And I will hand it on over to Miranda.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Anna. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us, sharing your evening with us. We're going to talk about upgrading the immune system, a very timely topic for the cold November months, and how to use mushrooms to do that. So yeah, just to sort of build on more about me, first we got to talk about me. I am Vancouver-based naturopathic doctor. I have more than 30 years of experience in the natural health industry. So if you remember when Anna said I started, that gives you a bit of a dating schedule for me. Compassionate and curious practitioner. I do love asking questions and I love getting to know patients better. That first visit is an hour and I can really enjoy getting to know the intricacies of a person and their health and their goals. And the word doctor comes from the word teacher, the Latin word docere. So I really enjoy teaching people about their bodies, how they work, why these things that I'm recommending could be helpful. And that's what I get to do tonight, is sort of act as the teacher and share mushroom knowledge with you. My favorite place is in the kitchen, preparing food for my family. I do love learning. I'm terrible at saying I don't know. So I'm constantly looking things up so I can just say I don't know yet. Yoga, now also Zumba, finding that incredibly fun. Great way to burn off stress. And I love playing with my kids who are now 9 and 5 and who sometimes get mushrooms in their food and don't know about it. I'll tell you how to sneak it in later. So today we're going to go sort of an overview on medicinal mushrooms. Obviously, we need to talk about the immune system so we can understand how mushrooms tie into that. The key mushrooms that you want to look for immune health. It's a broad line that we're going to be talking about. And I think I just focus on about 6 different SKUs to really keep it concentrated and not too overwhelming. And then what you want to look for when you're buying your mushrooms. What are the key components that might be helpful in choosing the best product for you and for your family's health? So mushrooms are one of the original functional foods, right? Foods that we use to enact a purpose in our bodies and in our health. So they're cross-cultural. Sort of every continent except for like Antarctica, there is a use of mushrooms, and there is the role that mushrooms have played in the cultures and the evolution of those peoples. So thousands of years. This picture here is from a cave drawing in Algeria. So you can see the relationship between, where's my little cursor? There it is. The bee man. So you can see the need for pollinators and the role of honey as a great antiseptic and nutritional food. And then it's sprouting all these mushrooms around it. So this is, I believe, about 10,000 years old. And so yeah, we can see that historically it goes way, way back. This is a hat made of mushroom fibers. It's the amadou mushroom. And if you boil it and stretch it, you can almost felt it in a way and make sort of a mushroom material out of it. And Paul Stamets, who's the founder of the company that we're going to be talking about tonight, is kind of well known for his mushroom hat that he wears. So we see it worked into food, worked into medicines, and there's a wide range that we get to talk about and discuss. So a couple fun facts, just to give us some context of mushrooms and fungi. The largest ever known and the fossil was found, I believe, in Saudi Arabia. This is Prototaxides, and this was 30 feet tall. The trees at the time, this is sort of pre-dinosaur, the trees at the time only went, 3, 4 feet off the ground. So these towering pillars of fungal mass were probably the largest organisms at the time. And so they found a fossil on that. Currently, the largest mushroom is much flatter than that, but it covers about 3.5 to 4 square miles. This is in Eastern Oregon, and it's a honey mushroom, which is essentially sort of parasitic, like kind of destroys the area for trees, but allows other plants and flora and fauna to come into that area. So it's part of that great sort of recycling role that the fungus plays in the world. So this is one of the largest and possibly the oldest known organism of today. And researchers get to keep looking and trying to break those milestones. We know that mycorrhizae and endophytes are intimately connected to about 95% of plants. So as we said, mushrooms and fungi are like the great decomposers, the great recyclers of the world. So they're in the soil, they're excreting enzymes, they're breaking things down, and that liberates nutrients for the plants that are then growing, which we then use to nourish ourselves. And it's all part of this great sort of circle of life. There's a wonderful book written by a woman out at UBC, Suzanne Simard, and it's called Finding the Mother Tree. And she did extensive research over decades looking at how the mycorrhizal networks, how the fungi in the earth help to support the growth of forests and help the trees to communicate with each other and even share nutrients. So if there's a part of the forest that is suffering from drought or blight or insect infestation, they can shuttle nutrients from the healthier populations over to that tree and keep that alive. It's a really, really wonderful book. I'm even seeing this show up in things like the Magic School Bus, because I get to watch fun educational things with my kids. And there's a whole episode that taught my children about the mycorrhizal network in the forest, which was so gratifying to see. And then some medicines that we use today are derived from fungus. So penicillin is probably the best known, from a mold that was growing on the rind of an orange, that kind of purpley, no, not purpley, greenish blue mold that you'll see if you let your citrus sit around too long. Cyclosporin, which is an immunosuppressant. So that's also fungally derived, lovastatin, a cholesterol lowering medication. So we're able to get some pharmaceutical medicines from them. But today we're going to be talking more about their broad ranges, and particularly with regards to the immune system. So looking at the DNA, sort of that basis of proteins that are produced and information of what we all produce, animals, here represented by a human, we share about 50 to 55% the same DNA as fungi. So we diversified from each other on the tree of life about 650 million years ago. So they are, in a sense, our closest relatives. And what we have in common with them, we inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide, so do mushrooms. We secrete enzymes that digest and break down food to become nutrients for ourselves. We've internalized that, right? We chew, we swallow, and all of that happens inside our intestines. Mushrooms and fungi are doing the same thing, but they're secreting their enzymes out into the world, breaking down those nutrients and then absorbing them. And that's how they become the great sort of recyclers of the forest and of the planet. Mushrooms and fungi are closely related to plants, or similar to plants, in that they both have kind of a root-like network that anchors them to the ground and absorbs nutrients that way. In that sense, we're different. But plants obviously have that unique complement to us, which is that they inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. So we have that, again, that symbiosis. But because of this connection with mushrooms, because we have a strong DNA overlap of 50 to 55%, we're able to benefit from a lot of the compounds that they produce. And so when they're in their forest secreting compounds to gain more nutrients, to compete with other species of mushrooms that might be out there, they're producing natural antifungals. We can benefit from those natural antifungals. They're producing antibacterials. We can benefit from those antibacterials. So there's a great connection between mushrooms and us and animals. So to better understand the mushroom, we're going to talk a little bit about their life cycle. So the spore is what's released. That's the genetic information. And it will start reproducing in a little linear fashion, creating this very, very thin, fine filament. And that moves through the soil and through the forest floor. And if it finds something that is genetically compatible, so a little hyphae from another spore, then they will meet, they will mate, and then we will see this explosion into mycelium. So mycelium, we now have the two sets of genetic information from two parents, and now it's growing. And it can be argued that this really is the essence of the organism. This is what is dynamic. It is what is breaking down the soil. It's where the immune system of this particular organism lies, because it's having to compete for resources and protect itself against what it's encountering. And then these really fine, wispy filaments of mycelium will start to sort of coalesce in little buds. And those are called primordia. And then sometimes those will further coalesce, like balls of wool getting bigger and more entangled. And then that can pop up from the floor of the soil or out from the trunk of the tree, and we see the fruiting body. And the fruiting body is kind of like the apple to the apple tree. It's just going out, it's going to release the spores and then continue on that life cycle, but it isn't the essence of that organism. It's just part of it. My children were part of me, but now they are separate entities, and I am still myself. The mycelium is really the organism, and then the fruiting body is that perpetuation of that species. So it can pop out, release the spore, and then carry on. Obviously, our ancestors, all they had access to was the fruiting body. That was what comes out of the ground. It's what they could see, what they could harvest, and what they could use. But as we're learning more about the mycelium, we're really recognizing the wealth of compounds that it produces and how we can get a lot more out of that for our health and for our benefit. So mycelium, as I said, it's so much more than the root structure of the mushroom. It really is the mushroom itself. So what we're calling that mushroom, like I just said, is the fruit of the entire organism. So it's short-lived, it pops out, spreads the spores, and then decays. So the apple produces the seeds, drops to the ground. The strawberry gives the seeds, and then drops to the ground, and we eat it and we move it on. The mycelium is the digestive and the immune systems of the mushroom together. It's the most resilient. It's the long-living part of the entire organism. When we saw that huge honey mushroom taking up 3.5 to 4 square miles in Eastern Oregon, that's a mycelial network happening under the ground. That is one particular organism. And every now and then it's going to pop up fruiting bodies, and that will help to perpetuate that. 95% of the life cycle in the mushroom is in that mycelial stage. The fruit body is just short-lived, comes out, let's spread some spores, and carrying on. And the mycelium is what lives year-round, 365 days of the year, and the fruiting bodies only come out when the temperature and the moisture content and everything is ripe for that spore to then be transported in the breeze, move to another territory, and hopefully find a genetic match to start growing a new life form over there. And there's a lot of research coming out on mycelia now. And so we're seeing that, the genes that are expressed by the mycelia alone are about 429 versus the fruiting bodies about 91. So there's the potential to make that many more compounds, the enzymes, the beta-glucans, the immune active compounds. Primordia less so. As we start merging those together, we're seeing sort of a greater synergy and complement. So we can get a lot more medicinal value from using mycelia, primordia, and then sometimes even the fruiting body as well, all mixed together. So mushrooms help to support our natural immunity because we have that close affiliation with fungi. And they give nutrients to support every body system from brain and nerves to energy and skin cells. So we have a broad range of medicines at our disposal, and we can really target particular tissues. Obviously, today we're staying here in the pink, in the immune function support area. And we're learning more and more. So we have our ancestral knowledge, which our forefathers brought to us of, use this mushroom for this particular benefit or cook this one in this way. But now we're able to get into the nitty gritty and use science and really understand those individual compounds, compare them head to head, test them on different cell lines, and really sort of deepen our knowledge. So mushrooms and the immune system. So first, an overview of the immune system. It is there to protect us and keep us in balance. So So it can both overreact and underreact, and it responds to external threats and internal threats. So it's kind of like a teeter-totter, or more like sort of a balancing wheel where you have to sort of really, really keep your core strength going so you can stay in that nice neutral spot, but easy to rock one way or the other, and it needs to dance and be responsive. If our immune system is overreactive, then we're going to have sort of a stronger immune reaction. So if it's reacting to an external threat, which could be a pollen, a food that the body doesn't agree with or enjoy, then we can end up with hay fever, right? We're reacting to pollens. We can have allergies to cats and dogs or feathers or dust. We can see people who get reactions to different metals when they wear, certain types of watch bands or belt buckles or whatever it may be, and the skin reacts. The immune system is overreactive to something that really isn't necessarily a threat. Cat dander isn't going to kill us, but some immune systems are exaggerated in their response to that, and other people's immune systems are like, whatever, it's cat dander, maybe fine. It can also be overreactive to internal systems, and that's where we see more of that autoimmune imbalance. So whether it's thyroiditis, where the immune system is attacking the thyroid, rheumatoid arthritis, where it's the synovial fluid that the immune system is attacking, but it's a confused, over zealous, exaggerated response when the immune system is like, oh, must attack the small intestine, and then we end up with celiac disease. So we need to temper that and bring that down. But we don't want to bring it down too far. If the immune system is underactive, then when we have those internal threats, then we can see things growing like latent viruses, where shingles can come back when our immune system doesn't keep that herpes zoster virus in check. We might see cancers. We can see hepatitis. So a lot of like these old lingering things that really decrease our immune function. So viruses and cancer are the big ones there. We want to have natural killer cells that are going to kill off cells that have been infected or cells that haven't multiplied correctly. Or we end up with infection, right? You can have 20 people in a room, one person sneezes. Not everyone is going to go home with a cold. Some people will. So some people, their immune system was strong, nipped it in the bud. Nope, no entry. I'm going to stay healthy this time. And other people, maybe they were overtired, maybe they've got stress, maybe they just had something really sugary for whatever it is. Their immune system was not up to snuff. That virus got through, and now they express those cold symptoms. That can also happen with obviously bacterial infections, with mold and fungal infections, parasites in the intestines or in the skin, and viruses. We want to keep this perfect sense of balance. We want to be able to lean one way and then compensate, and go the other way and come back and stay on top of all of it. We can also look at our immune system as kind of a wheel or a cycle. When we have these different stages. So the first is when it engages with whatever that threat may be, whether it's a real threat, like a bacterial or a viral infection, or a perceived threat, like tree pollen or its own tissue, or the thyroid. And that's when we're going to see the tissue trauma. We're going to see oxidative damage. The immune system's engaged. It is starting to bring white blood cells to that area. We're going to see inflammation, where the cells start to move apart so that the white blood cells can travel through to that necessary tissue. Then we're going to see recruitment. The immune system is actively working. We're seeing they're releasing chemicals called cytokines that help to send the signal through the bloodstream saying, we're under attack, we need more support. We might see the runny nose, we might see redness, heat, pain, all of these indications that the immune system is doing its thing. Then we're done. We make it past that particular trauma. You've sprained your ankle, now the tissues are healing up. You've had the bronchitis, and now you're just clearing up and restoring the function of that bronchial tissue. The immune system is cleaning up that wreckage. We're regenerating healthy tissue in its place. And then we go back into a state of vigilance, of just watching and waiting. The immune system's still there. It's seeing what's coming up next, and it's ready to jump onto it. I like analogies, so let's go with the analogy of a car accident. So in the engagement, that's when we first have, the two vehicles smashing into each other. There's trauma, there's damage. The traffic flow is going to be impaired. Recruitment, now we need to bring in the ambulances and the fire department and the police possibly, and we're going to see more of that sort of, it kind of escalates. Bigger traffic jams, really have to deal with that issue. Then we settle that down. It's the clearance. Now we've got the tow trucks coming in, the people who sweep up the glass and get rid of the metal that may have the debris that landed on the ground. And then we're back to that watchful waiting of, the traffic systems, of looking before return, having, maybe cameras on. So just sort of keeping that flow going and seeing how things are going to move. I think of it as like the movement of traffic through our body. So we have that study synopsis. So using this in mind, we can now look at research that has looked at mushrooms to see where they fall in this immune cycle continuum. So in that engagement stage, we see agarikon, one mushroom that we're going to talk about in a little bit, has 3 stars. So it has very robust support for engagement. So when we first encounter that virus, in particular for agarikon, that's a great one to jump on. You feel the tickle, you've got that slight scratch in the throat, or you're living with someone who's just come down with a viral illness and you want to protect yourself, agarikon is a great one to choose. Turkey tail would also be a great one to choose in my community. They have the most robust evidence. Reishi would not be bad. If that's what you have, then great, go with reishi. Recruitment, so helping that immune system to engage the enemy and deal with it and get to the other side. Again, agarikon, turkey tail, my community. Fermented rice, we're going to see show up in these areas too, but not as strongly as it does when we're in the clearance and the watchful waiting. And the fermented rice will come into play in a few more slides where I'll talk about that. We're going to see agarikon here really shines. And then in the watchful waiting, again, agarikon, turkey tail, and the fermented rice. But all of them have a role. I mean, +1 for reishi in the recruitment and clearance isn't bad. It's still doing something. It is a mild yet significant support. It's not nothing. And so choosing which one you are going to use based on where your immune system is at in that particular struggle is going to be helpful. And so here we know the role of the microbiomes, these pounds of friendly bacteria, of some good yeasts that are living in our digestive tract, supporting our gut flora and supporting our immune system. Our immune system is predominantly concentrated along the intestines because it's where we're the most vulnerable to attack. So we have some immune cells underneath our skin, but really we need to be kind of poked by a thorn or scratched with something for that potential danger to get into our tissues. Otherwise, the skin's a pretty good barrier, but there is immune cells lining there, but it's a bit thicker. We have immune cells obviously lining our respiratory tract because we can breathe in spores, pollution, viral particles, bacteria, and then that can land and cause an infection. So we have a lot of immune cells lining our bronchial tree. But where we are the thinnest and most vulnerable to attack is in our digestive tract because it needs to be thin so that we can absorb our nutrients in the small intestine. So the body, knows that the barrier is the weakest there necessarily, and so it concentrates the immune cell along there. So if we can keep our microbiome balanced and healthy and well-nourished, that is a huge step up in keeping our immune system balanced and healthy and well-nourished. So the mutual symbiotic relationship between the gut microbiota and the immune system. The bacteria want us to be healthy because we are a lovely 37 degrees Celsius, steady supply of food and water, right? We are a good home for them. They want to keep their home healthy. And then we look after the bacteria. And so we've got this great back and forth relationship. So a healthy microbiome will optimally regulate the maturation of the mucosal immune system. So think of like mucus tissues. So in our digestive tract, in our bronchial tree, while a pathogenic microbiome causes immunity dysfunction resulting in disease development. We have good bacteria. The bad bacteria is one that's going to give you pneumonia. It's damaging that mucosal immune system in the lungs. We can't really talk about mushrooms and the immune system without discussing beta-glucans. They are very well researched key component of mushrooms. We're going like, oh, this is kind of what's doing a lot of the good stuff. So just trying to break down our understanding of what beta-glucans are. Broad spectrum, they are a carbohydrate. They contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Then they're a polysaccharide. That's a way of saying that they have lots of sugars bound together in various chains and formations. So a many sugared molecule. There we go. And then from those polysaccharides, some are starch, like what you're going to eat in, pasta. And then more specifically are the beta-glucans. So they branch out in different ways, and they may contain more than just glucose. They might contain some fatty acids, which have been shown to be quite beneficial for the immune system. There might be some amino acids or proteins bound into there as well. So they're a bit more complex structures, but they fall under the umbrella of carbohydrates. And then we see specific beta-glucans particular to individual mushrooms. So just because it's, got that mushroom cap shape in the stem and it gives spores doesn't mean it's a universal beta glucan formula or picture. So in reishi, the ones that have been most studied are one called GLP-20 and many, 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 many more. Reishi is a very well-studied mushroom. In turkey tail, the two that are the most interest and then you'll see the most research on if you ever wanted to look up the research on PubMed are PSK and PSP. And particularly they're being used or researched against particular cancer cell lines. Shiitake, the main one we found is lentinan. And then maitake, we've got the D fraction and the SX fraction. And they have different roles, again, cancer, therapy, blood sugar balance with maitake. They all have slightly different roles. And there's quite a bit of confusion because people are like, well, if beta glucans are good, then how do we get more of them? But we don't just want to say, oh, I need to get more carbohydrates into my diet. We want to be more specific. Or I need more soluble fiber, or I need more insoluble fiber, or I need more sugar, or I need more complex starch. So we want to be very specific, or I need just eating something for the sake of getting protein isn't going to help you be particular about which amino acids you're going to be getting in that protein, which in turn will have a very specific effect on what that does in the body. I hope that's making sense. So particular beta glucans will have different effects on our system based on their size, their shape, their structure. So if we see a product that's just saying like, well, it contains this many milligrams of beta glucans, that isn't necessarily helpful because we want to get more specific as to, well, which ones and what are their structures and what are their functions in the body? How do they interact with our system? And we also don't historically absorb the beta glucans. So here we have our cell membrane. This is inside each cell. And there's a particular protein structure called a toll-like receptor. And so part of it sticks inside the cell membrane and part of it sticks outside the cell membrane. So it's able to sample information on the outside of the cell and bring that information through into the cell. And then the cell behaves based on that signal that it got. So here we're seeing where the beta glucans will interact with the external version of that toll-like receptor and send that signal in. And so it's a lovely way for the cell to get the information without having to expose itself to the particular compounds, which often were too big to be absorbed anyway. So we see this binding will trigger the cell to have that cascade of reactions that it knows to increase the production of a particular protein or decrease inflammation or do whatever that signal is telling it to do. So it's a bit of a complex process. So we want to be mindful of beta glucans and what they do, but not get too excited about the amount of beta glucans it says on the label, because that might be misleading in terms of our understanding of what it does for the body. All right, that's for the science so much. Now we're going to talk about some key mushrooms for immune health. This is the meat of the product, right? So what we want to know. One, we're trying not to get sick. The key ones we want to look at are reishi, Stamets-7, which is a blend of 7 mushrooms, and MycoShield, which is a blend of 5 mushrooms. And it's the only one we're going to talk about here that's a liquid. It's a throat spray. So it goes right onto the throat tissue, which is where we are vulnerable, right? We're breathing in viral particles and respiratory droplets through our nose and our mouth, and that's going to give us that first line of defense there. If we actually do succumb and we start feeling ill, the 3 that we're going to focus on are the agarikon, the turkey tail, and the mycommunity. And we'll start with the individual mushrooms, then move on to the blends. So reishi, Latin name is Ganoderma lucidum. So to make that a bit fun, we're translating it for you. And that means the bright-skinned, shiny mushroom, right? Lucid, derma is skin, and gano, I guess, is mushroom. And they're gorgeous. They are solid. They, you touch them, they feel like wood. There's no frying these up with some butter and garlic and serving them. They are really, really dense mushroom fruiting bodies. And there's a lot of research on reishi. I'm not going to go into each individual study. It's just way too much science. We just kind of wanted to highlight the fact that there is a lot of research here. And just looking at this first study, Ganoderma lucidum mycelia, particularly the mycelia was studied, and it enhanced our innate immunity by activating nuclear factor kappa beta. So this is something that helps our immune system to engage and fight the enemy. So I want to support our innate immunity. There's anti-allergic constituents in reishi. There are polysaccharides that reduce the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines. They're immunomodulatory. So we think of that wheel of the immune system. There's times we want to ramp up inflammation so we can recruit the other cells to come in and help us fight off this infection or heal up this damaged tissue. And then there's times we want to bring that inflammation down and not let it smolder. Let's get back to the normal functioning of that particular tissue. And reishi was helpful. Never got 3 stars, but it was helpful kind of in all 4 quadrants of that cycle. So it offers a gentle yet balanced immune support. It is ideal for bringing immune system into equilibrium, whether underactive or overactive. So it's a little bit of sort of an inside joke, but like if you don't know which mushroom to give someone, give them reishi. If you don't know which mushroom to take reishi. It checks a lot of boxes. It checks almost all the boxes. So it's antihistamine, it's adrenal supportive, so it helps with stress. It is a nerve tonic, a liver tonic, a kidney tonic, a heart tonic. It's hard to go wrong with reishi unless you have an allergy to mushrooms in particular. Helps to balance the immune response in the blood and in the vascular endothelium. So we're talking about inflammation in the arteries, which is part of cardiovascular disease. Gently supports energy and stamina. And it's a premier adaptogen. Adaptogens are herbs that work on our brain to regulate our stress response. So you have a psychological or a physical stressor. So that colleague who drives you nuts, or you're starting on a new exercise routine, whatever stress your body is under, reishi is helpful and supportive. And it's a wonderful prebiotic to support our probiotic microflora. So it's going to help nourish our microbiome while regulating the inflammatory response in our system. Turkey tail, Trametes versicolor, translates into the multicolored one, who is thin. It has these really sort of thin leaves. Obviously, they aren't leaves, but they look like them. And it has some sort of beautiful rainbow colors that might come out. Grows all over the world, again, pretty much everywhere except Antarctica, and well revered for great medicinal value. It strongly supports the immune system. So maybe getting a little bit more oomph here. Excellent source of cellular nutrients, so precursors to PSP and PSK, which as I mentioned are being studied as anti-cancer agents. Supports the gut ecosystem, again, that probiotic growth. Turkey tail I also think of as wonderful as liver detoxifier. So if you're doing a spring cleanse or a fall detox or whatever time of year you're doing that, or just, kind of feel like it's time to clean up the liver, maybe post-Christmas, turkey tail is one to consider as part of that formula. And here we have a really interesting study where they used, again, it's the mycelium of the Trametes versicolor that was fermented on organic brown rice, so just plain rice. And then they took it apart and they saw that both the mycelium and the fermented substrate have different and complementary immune activity in human cells. So you take the rice, grow the mycelia on it, and then separate the two. So looking at just the mycelia and just the rice that no longer has a smidge of fungal growth on it, but it has been changed in the process of supporting the growth of that mycelia, that then creates immune compounds in that rice. So again, analogies, a cabbage and sauerkraut are quite different. Live sauerkraut still has that active fermentation. It has the yeast, the bacteria that are breaking it all down and making it sour. If you pasteurize it and kill off those bacteria, makes it heat stable. Now it sits on the shelf in the grocery store a lot better, but you've killed off the beneficial probiotic strains. And yet the remaining substance, the cabbage that has been fermented, is still a different nutritional medicinal value than the original cabbage that it had. So just the act of fermenting the rice makes the rice more immunologically available. So more strongly modulatory. So again, kind of immune system up and kind of immune system down at the same time, just balancing it out. So it's a wonderful substrate to grow that mycelium on. Agarikon. This is one of Paul Stamets's favorite mushrooms. Talks about it a lot. They are hard to find. They tend to grow in very, very old trees. So they've been culturing it for a long time, decades, maybe even over 100, 150 years, and then will pop out of fruiting bodies. They're often like way up at the top of, say, a Douglas fir in a forest, and therefore can be hard to see. So they can be quite prized. Strong historical use. They've been mentioned as treatments for tuberculosis in our medicinal history. The Latin for them is Fomitopsis officinalis, which is not very exciting. It just means belonging to the genus of tinder-like mushrooms, so things that are going to help with fire. But agarikon has a great affinity for the respiratory tract. So I think of this one anytime there's a cold or flu or bronchitis or anything that's happening in that upper respiratory system, I always have agarikon on hand. Not something I take every day, but it's in my cupboard. It's ready to go. I have 2 young kids. Upper respiratory tract things are a regular presence in our home. It's just a sniffly nose. That's great. Supports an internal ecosystem friendly to probiotic microflora. So we're going to see that a lot, right? They have these prebiotic fibers that are going to help to support our growth, and supports modulation of the immune system and strongly antiviral activity. There is not currently a lot of research on agarikon. Here's one study that looks at its activity against Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So tuberculosis is actually on the rise in some areas of BC, particularly Vancouver and in the downtown east side. There is some new research that we're hoping will be published soon, done by Paul and Host Defense. So we should be getting some more published agarikon research there too. I think it's predominantly on antiviral, but I haven't read the studies yet. Just heard whispers. So those are the individuals. Talking about the formulas and the blends that come together, there's a wonderful synergy that happens when you bring things together. So if you think about just eating onions, little strong, little sharp, but if you mix it with other herbs and you bring in the carrots and the celery, then you can end up with a much more flavorful soup or a flavorful stew. Similar idea to the mushrooms. If they looked at the 7 species that are used in this particular formula and take each of those species and look at how much it increases macrophage activity. Macrophage is one of our white blood cells. It means big eater. It gobbles up cellular debris. It gobbles up bacteria. Add them all together, and you're going to get 2,962% increase, which is awesome. But if you mix all 7 of them together and then see what that does to the macrophages, we see an increase of 3,267%. So it increases it by, 200-300% by taking all 7 together rather than taking each one individually and trying to get that same balance. Natural killer cell activity increased 315% when it was a blend versus the mean average of 238 for each individual species. So 238%, again, still good. You're still okay if you're just taking reishi or birch polypore or lion's mane or cordyceps. But take all 7 together and you get a bit more oomph coming out of that synergy between all those different fungal species. And synergistic combinations of mushroom species appear to activate collective subfields of receptor sites. They're going to spread the message wider. You get a wide range of positive responses that result in improved immunological health. If we want to take it further, we look at Stamets 7 as kind of your mushroom multi, the thing that you would take every day just for that overall immune support. You can do it for daily maintenance and just to kind of stay on top of your game, particularly if, like me, you have young kids or you work in the public sector, you're a bus driver or a school teacher, whatever it may be. If you are engaged with more people and not able to just work at home and protect yourself through physical space, the MycoShield is a great one because you're spraying it directly on that tissue in the throat and you're able to give yourself a little bit more oomph. If you're going on an airplane, never get on a plane without having the MycoShield. Just enclosed space, lots of circulating, again, respiratory droplets. Someone sneezes 20 rows in front of you, you might be exposed to that virus. So you get that added boost. It comes in 2 flavors. There's cinnamon and peppermint. You can pick which one you prefer the taste of. I also kind of go with yin and yang, traditional Chinese medicine theory. So if someone is sick and they feel really cold and chilly and they just want blankets and soup and hot tea and ginger and warming things, then I would lean towards a cinnamon. Let's support that and really yang them up. If someone's feeling hot and sweaty and there's like throwing off the blankets, maybe the peppermint just help kind of cool that down. Or you go with whichever one you prefer the flavor of. And then my community is a blend of 17 mushrooms, and we see even greater synergy than we do with the 7. So this is the one, agarikon I never run out of, my community I never run out of. Don't take them every day. But they're always there. So one person in my family goes down, the rest of us are getting to my community along with that sick person so we can keep ourselves bolstered and not get sick. If you open up a capsule, because they're grown on organic, non-GMO brown rice, it just tastes like rice. It tastes like sort of baby cereal, pablum type stuff. It's really bland, really mild. So I'll open up a capsule and divide it up and slip little bits into my kids' soup or mix it in with some nut butter or seed butter when I'm making their sandwiches. And they don't know that I'm fortifying their immune systems just to try to keep everyone healthy and on top of things. But I only do that one if we're actively sick. The rest of the time, it's usually just reishi for me. So who is host defense? We've been talking about all these wonderful mushrooms and the effect it has on our immune system. And why this company? Why do I love them so much, and why am I so supportive of what they do? And there's many reasons. One is Paul Stamets himself. He is amazing. If you ever get a chance to hear him speak, please do. If you don't, you can get to know him through the movie Fantastic Fungi, which is now being shown on Netflix. He started off as a mycologist over 40 years ago. He was working in forestry. And I think, if I remember correctly, there was a bad weekend where a number of people were killed or injured. And he's like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I do like being in the forest and I do enjoy these mushrooms. And so he started learning more. And he's had decades of experience and research, and he grows mushrooms for restaurants, and then got more into the medicinal side. And now he's really championing psilocybin as a chance of sort of healing the collective mental psyche of our planet. Fungi Perfecti is his parent company. Host Defense is just the medicinal mushrooms, just the ones we've been talking about. He's written 8 books. The most recent one is Mycelium Running. And in there, it's page 30 something, but there's a chart that takes all these medicinal mushrooms and many more that we haven't spoken about. And then at the top, it has, heart health, liver health, kidney health, immune health, antihistamine, sexual potentiation, anti-candida, anti-inflammatory. And you see which mushrooms have which effect. And that's where you see reishi checks all the boxes except for 2. It doesn't support libido and it's not anti-candida. But otherwise, you kind of can't go wrong. But it's a wonderful reference where you can really see the benefit of each of these mushrooms broken down. And then he gets more into how mushrooms can be used to clean up the planet, how we can use mycelia with the runoff of farmers' fields and to contain that and clean that up so it doesn't go pollute the rivers and then affect the ecosystem further downstream. It's a really wonderful book. I'd highly recommend reading it. It's engaging, it's interesting. There's some great pictures in there. So that's his most recent book. Countless techniques in the field of edible and functional food mushroom cultivation. He's received numerous awards and honors for his contributions to the science of health promoting mushrooms and ecology. He's also come up with a mushroom blend that helps bees. So the pollinators of the world are being attacked by different viruses being carried by certain mites. And he came up with a mushroom blend, made it available to all beekeepers. You don't have to pay for it or pay for the formula. And so we can save the pollinators and save our planet because we need them. Engage in very diverse projects with universities, nonprofit groups, centered on finding fungal solutions to global problems. And his quote is that the path to the future is the path of the mycelium. In 1 cubic inch of earth in a forest, there's 8 miles of mycelium. There's so much DNA and proteins and information and communication happening in the ground beneath us, and it's all happening through the mycelia. And if they can protect themselves in the forest and shuttle nutrients from one tree to another, they can really be part of our global awareness and survival. The total chain of custody. So this is a really important factor because all of the mushrooms that he uses, he has gained control of himself, goes into the forest and sees an agarikon that is so rare and prized. He doesn't take the entire agarikon. He takes one little sample, like the top of my baby finger, like a pencil eraser size, brings that chunk of DNA back, grows it out on the Petri dish, and then they're able to learn from that, extrapolate from that, but not disrupt the ecosystem in the process. Many mushrooms today are coming from overseas. They can be contaminated with heavy metals. His are not. They're being cultivated locally, grown locally. The ones that do not grow traditionally in North America have been gifted to him from other countries. So they aren't exposed to the irradiation laws of when things go into the United States. So super clean mushrooms from their origin that don't hurt the environment right through to their final products that we're able to consume and benefit from. All USDA certified organic, non-GMO project verified, and beautiful pristine forest near where he lives. Very strong commitment from Host Defense to the research and innovation. So it's one of the fundamental building blocks of the Host Defense brand is, let's not just say mycelium's good, let's do some research on it. Let's actually see what this does. Let's study particular mushroom mycelia on cell lines and see what happens. And then that then might generate a spark of interest for a university who can then take that research further and sort of separate it from the brand, but still get that knowledge coming out of it. So this is a really key difference between Host Defense and other mushroom brands. It sets them apart in the industry. Paul Stamets is the founder and chief science officer, and he sets the direction for all the research and development efforts. So he's like, oh, pollinators, let's work on that. Oh, there's carpenter ants, let's work on that. Oh, there's huge addiction and mental health issues, let's work on that. So he's always at the forefront of trying to change things for the better. Host Defense products continue to be produced under his supervision. He's still very actively involved and owning the company. Fungi Perfecti is certified B Corp. B Corp is a third-party organization that's using business as a force for good. So if we look at the major woes of the planet, socioeconomic status, environmental damage, many times that can be traced back to business and greed and all about profit. Show me the money, never mind the little people, never mind the oceans. Let's just, make some cash. And B Corp is a third-party group that is looking to use business as a force for good. So it counts on transparency and accountability. There's quite a checklist that companies need to meet in order to get that certified B Corp stamp of approval. So we want that. Sustainability has been woven into the fabric of Fungi Perfecti since its inception, right? Paul's a huge environmentalist. We continue to add transparency and accountability in all we do to support the bees, trees, people, and planet. Continually improve our operational efficiency, increase the use of renewable energy and offset projects and support offset projects, equaling 110% of their calculated annual scope of 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions. They look at their environmental impact, and then they're supporting efforts to not just balance it out, but exceed it, that they are improving the planet with what they do rather than taking from it. There you go. B Corp, part of that global community of businesses that meet high standards of social and environmental impact and are people using business as a force for good. A lot of warm fuzzies. Really key takeaways that I want you to remember if you can, that the top single mushrooms, when in doubt, choose reishi. If you're really looking for a bit more immune support or some added liver engagement there, turkey tail. And agarikon is the one you want to keep in mind for a virus. So great one to have at home if you are in a family situation where viruses get brought home often. Top mushroom formulas, if we're looking at the blends, that would be the Stamets 7. So your great mushroom multi, you can take it every day, either the reishi or the Stamets 7, mix it up, do one bottle, next time get the other bottle, just keep the immune system broad spectrum engaged and interested. MycoShield, great to have for that first line of defense if you're going on a bus, going on an airplane, working with the public. And then My Community, kind of the big guns to keep on hand for when you do actually start getting sick. Always consume purity tested and sustainably sourced mushroom products. There are some species of mushrooms that are becoming extinct and are extinct in some parts of the world. Chaga is one in particular. It's no longer grows in the northern United Kingdom where it used to be found. It's just been over harvested. So to be really mindful. And when we're growing on mycelia, we have sustainability. We don't have to go take it from the trees. We don't have to ship it in from another country. So mycelium is also great for supporting the planetary efforts. And look for mushroom products that also have studies, right? We want the research. If someone's coming out going, here's something new and shiny, check out this product, like, cool, where's the research? And Host Defense has lots of great research to back up what they do and to show that it does have that benefit to the system. So last reminder, mushrooms for prevention, reishi, Stamets 7, or MycoShield. Mushrooms for the acute care, agarikon, turkey tail, and or My Community. And thank you again so much for your time. I am hoping that there are some questions. I do love answering them. And I will pass it back to Anna. We've got time for questions.
Yes, let me just restart my video. There we go.
There we go.
So I don't see any questions as of yet, but we are on a little bit of a delay with the live stream, so maybe they'll be coming in.
All right.
But yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. That was very interesting.
My pleasure.
And
Love talking about Paul Stamets' mushrooms.
yeah, I didn't know a lot about mushrooms before this, so I was very
There you
interested
go.
to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is just sort of tip of the iceberg, 6 products. We can talk about brain health next. We can talk about, there's so many uses for them.
Yes, definitely. Let me just reload to see if we do have any questions, because I really don't want to miss any.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't see anything coming
Okay.
through. So
If questions come in later, if you think of something in the middle of the night, you can reach out to Choices. They can then reach out
yes.
to our company and we can get any answers to you. Sometimes you just need some time to mull it over. I do strongly encourage you to watch Fantastic Fungi. It's a great overview of Paul the man and the role that mushrooms can play in so many areas of our lives.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to either email us or stop by the store and we'll definitely be able to help you figure something out. Yeah. So thank you so much for the
Great.
presentation, and I am going to end the live stream now.
Lovely. Take care, everyone.